thing of masculinity. You know what I mean? It's not just men that got it fucked up. Oh, by the way, Omari, you could cuss now. You good.
If you choose to.
If you choose
I'm glad you told me, because I didn't know I couldn't in the first place.
Oh, shit. It's not just men that got it fucked up on masculinity. It's women, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's so much that we're all still learning. You know what I mean? And you were talking before the break. You were talking about what does healthy masculinity look like. The one area that I know that I do not see healthy masculinity happening is in the culture that raised me, which is hip hop. I just don't see healthy masculinity like that. Nor do I see, nor do I see even women in the hip hop culture pushing us to be representing healthy masculinity. So like I've come to this conclusion that we are in the thought culture. Like hip hop has had the Ice Age, we've had the bling era, we've had the gangster era, Illuminati era. I feel like now we in the thought era of hip hop. You know,
on men and women.
And on men and women.
Right.
And the celebration of just being out there, loose, messing with this one and that one and just getting bread. How do you think it's going to, what do you think the future looks like in hip hop culture when it comes to masculinity?
So, for one, I want to add sports to that, because sports is also that same kind of vibe. But, and they're so closely married now. I think in hip hop, so one of my favorite hip hop artists of all time is Mos Def, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mos Def said something like, somebody asked him, how was hip hop doing? How is hip hop going to look in the future? Something to that effect. And he said, you know, hip hop won't get better till the people get better. Right? So, hip hop, in hip hop society, those who intake hip hop, I think the unfortunate and strange relationship we have is that we bounce back and forth to each other. Like, it's no longer about art imitating life. It's about art imitating life and then life imitating art, and it keeps bouncing back and forth, like down this strange continuum where we get unhealthier and unhealthier. And the healthy artists never get time on the radio or mainstream. No. And then the artist that could be healthy, like one of my favorite artists is Fontaine, he writes beautiful compositions, but every now and then he got to throw in a bitch or, you know, talk about walking out in his words, walking off with two white hoes.
Fontaine, you know, little brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I see a lot of misogyny that's really cheap. You know, all misogyny is cheap, but it's like, dude, that line wasn't even needed. You know what I'm saying? You could have done the whole song without that line and wouldn't hurt the song.
Right.
So I think that we are going for sensationalism. We're going for hip-hop is continuing to go down that road where it's looking for what's most acceptable to the people or telling the people what should be most acceptable to them. So I see independent artists tend to be more positive than artists that are signed to deals.
Really?
Right. And I think that's because the labels tell the artists to sign the deals, and this is as a music insider, because I'm in the music industry a little bit too. The labels tell the people what they can and can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but as an independent, you know, like you think about Tech Nine and Immortal Technique, right?
Oh.
They have some misogyny, right? I'm more familiar with Immortal Technique's music. Some misogyny, a little bit, not a whole lot, not like what we see on radio and mainstream. But it's not like this overwhelming piece where it looks like he's being directed to do it.
Yeah, no, but you know Immortal Technique will never see the light of day. So, like, right. What about more of, you know, when you got a Cardi B and a Megan Thee Stallion that are now, just like Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown, they're only raising the misogyny more. Isn't that right?
But who was I in the room with 2 nights ago? I was in the room with Rhapsody and Ciroc. Right? Who who aren't doing that. You know
No,
what I'm saying?
not at all.
And it's like, how do we get Rock and Rhapsody more radio time than we get Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion?
It just
You
won't
know?
happen. I just don't see that.
Why is
happening.
it not happening?
Cause we not owners, cause we don't own nothing.
Yeah, and people don't want to hear it.
They like the
Right,
music.
right. And also because we accept the misogyny as men and women.
I'm about to say, and women too, though. Like it
Because
seems
women
like even
purchase
more
more
so
music
now.
than men do.
What's that?
Women purchase more hip hop than men do.
Yeah, but women who they might. I feel like women who listen to hip hop, the only hip hop they mainly listen to is ratchet and misogynistic.
Right, but that's the point I'm making, right? Like, how do we, as men, we have to shift the patriarchy paradigm because it comes from us, it slides away, right? Like, we are the purveyor, we are the domineers of culture. We dominate what culturally is going to happen, right?
Mm.
And as men, we have to start dictating that we're not going to continue to promote misogyny. We want more healthy stuff out here, right?
Do you think that could ever happen, though?
Well, the problem is men are marketing this stuff. Like, it's the men behind the marketing. It's men deciding what artists get pushed out there.
And it's usually the
Like, it took
it's
a
usually
great
the
deal to
culture
get Rhapsody.
vultures, right? It's usually the culture vultures that are the main ones that's pushing this.
I'm having a little bit hard time hearing. I heard something about culture vultures.
Yeah, he said is it mainly the culture vultures that are pushing this?
Oh, absolutely. White men.
Right.
White men, right? But we as a community have to say, we're not trying to hear that no more. You know what I mean? Like, the white men are going to have to bow down. Like, when we affect their advertising dollars, when we affect their purchasing, what gets purchased, like, when we start saying, as men, on social media, we're going to promote Rhapsody. We're going to promote Sarah as a group of men. That's just who we're going to promote. We're going to start a movement. Like, these are the radical things that have to happen. We can't sit back and wait for it to shift and change. We got to force the change.
I think it's unfortunate, man. I guess you could say I'm cynical. I don't think people want it to change.
Well, see, the thing about that I'm thinking too, as well, is that the thing about that is that we've been basically, and speaking in the people aspect, we've been told what is the good hip hop by what's being promoted. We've been sold that this is good and that's not what you really want to hear. So I think if we do, like the brother's saying, if we start a massive or promoting the Rhapsodies and stuff like that, that's gonna start conditioning the people to say, yo, you know what? Yeah, this is what we really want to hear. This is what we need to hear.
I agree that people have been programmed.
Exactly.
There's no question about it. Like the same 18 jams in a row. Like at one point,
You mean 9?
right. At one point, Wu-Tang was like some hot shit. Like it was in the club. Tribe Called Quest was in the club playing. Public Enemy in the club playing. The programming began, but I feel like we're so far gone in the programming that to do the unlearning, to reprogram people's minds to say, oh yeah, let's listen to Rhapsody before Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. I just don't see people.
We gotta start with the kids.
Always sells.
We gotta
That's
start
been
with the
always
kids.
The number one seller. Sex sells.
But what about when
People
it
use
didn't?
that.
But for America,
They use that from day one.
No, but what about when it didn't though? What about in hip hop when it was not sex and it was actually bars and beats that women and men were rocking to, that were platinum albums? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, and there was a balance because you did have Two Live Crew and Too Short, but you had PE and Boogie Down Productions and Rock Young. You know, you had Big Daddy Kane that went down the middle of that line, and so did LL for a little bit. So I don't mind. I mean, I'd be okay. I'd be better with a little more balance. But right now, there's no balance.
There's no
They
balance.
did it too.
Who's that?
You know,
PE?
LL. They didn't picture it
Well, that's
out.
what he said. They went down the middle, but there was a balance. So what happened where you had what you just said, sex sells, right? But the other shit sold too.
But
That was
not-
going
right.
platinum.
But-
Now you don't got none of that shit, and it's just sex.
But because
so that's the programming that people are dumb
The two
on.
things happened was they recognized that they wanted to dumb us down. They wanted our children to not be equipped with no mental fortitude. So they said, and hip hop was one of the most powerful things that we gravitated to. So how are we gonna make them insane with this sex and drugs and hip hop? How are we gonna do that? We're gonna we're gonna give the money to the misogynistic type of stuff. That's what we're gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna put it in their contracts that we get to strike out their lyrics when we want to strike out. So you have a sister with you in the studio, right?
Yes.
I want to hear more from her perspective and what she feels about the same question you asked me about the Megan Thee Stallion and the Cardi B, because this is another thing. It's healthy masculinity. We have to make sure that when there's a woman in the room, her voice is as frequent as ours.
Yeah, she was the one that was letting you know like sex sells. But if you want to capitalize on your
whoever that's talking, I can't hear that well.
Okay, so you might speak up.
No, I was just saying the sex does sell. Maybe when back then in the days when they were doing a mixture of both, maybe they saw people were responding more to the music that was talking about sex. For some reason, that has always been number one in our community. We do sell sex for everything. When these girls go on the stage, they could be talking about God, but they're wearing a half-naked outfit. They're selling their sex. And that's what people respond to. So when you see that that's what people want the most, that's what they put out the most. And then it just took over.
So you feel like that's just what people wanted. There was no programming involved.
The programming, I mean, how do you say programming? It's like people, we're the ones who tell people what we want to hear. The radio plays what the people want to hear. So if people are saying this is what I want, that's what they're going to play. So
you don't believe hip hop culture or hip hop music has been used to dumb down people? You feel like people...
I do. But we are responsible for it ultimately. We have a mind of our own. We can choose. I don't like a lot of ratchet music. It's an individual thing. If you choose that kind of stuff, that's what they're going to keep throwing at us. And because the majority of us choose that stuff, that's what we always going to hear and see on TV and in the radio.
So when they did use hip hop culture to dumb people down, you said ultimately that was our choice because we wanted to hear it.
Right. If they were doing like I said,
so
LL, I love LL, but he was doing both. He sold sex and he had the real rap. We obviously was responding to that sex stuff more, which is why we got more of it.
So if somebody's at the top with a whole lot of money and a whole lot of options to say whether I want to put this money into this or that, and they take that money and they put it all in the gangster rap, and they promote that, they brand it, they put it everywhere, do you think that's influencing us to want to consume it more? Or is that just us saying, yes, that's what we want, that's why we want you to do that?
They will only keep doing it if we keep wanting it. Like, you can put your money into anything that you want to put it into, but if the people ain't going to buy it,
so what about the science and the professionalism of marketing and branding? Because that's all science.
A brainwash kind of trick. If you
are
putting it out there, somebody's going to say, well, if this is all I'm going to get, then I'm going to listen to it. But if you're giving them options, and they're going to choose what they want.
But so I guess my question is, when it shifted from options to now saying, to your point of brainwashing, programming, you said brainwash, I'm saying programming, and they say, okay, we're going to market and brand all of this type of music and this type of brand. We're going to put most of our money into this and market and brand this. Doesn't that have more of the influence on making people be brainwashed enough to say, yeah, keep bringing that?
If we let it, you don't have to accept that stuff. We
have to look at the mindset of our people, where we've been, everything, especially when
that's not everybody.
But hold on, it's not everybody, but it is the majority. When you see that this is how I'm going to get paid, because the people at the top put their money into a specific thing. So if this is what's gonna afford me the type of money, the type of lifestyle that I want, then I'm gonna buy into that. I am gonna literally do what's gonna get me that paycheck. It's not necessarily because there's a whole lane of hip hop people that wish they could still hear. I'd rather hear J. Cole or somebody or that's making sense more than we hearing the ignorance and savageness. Right. And even for the children, most children don't know what they want. They're just fed something. And when you feed a child something, that's what they're going to gravitate
I think one thing that we have to, and Omari, excuse me, we're going to, if you want to chime in, let me know.
Please do.
But one thing that I think we forget when it comes to this marketing and branding, we forget Edward Bernays. Some of us don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
And Edward Bernays is a psychologist who he was the godfather of going to companies, whether it's labels, and saying, hey, this is how you strike the emotions of people and get them to buy what they don't even know they don't even know what they want to buy, but this is how you get them to do it. The genius of what he did became pretty much the foundation for everybody who does marketing and branding to say, how do we get this that people don't want to buy? Like, I always joke with the kids and I say, if they want to get you to buy Doodle on a Stick, they're going to get you to buy Doodle on a Stick. They're going to come out with a rapper that reps Doodle on a Stick. They're going to come out with a dance, Doodle on a Stick. They're going to have a logo. It's going to be a viral video. Before you know it, you're going to be like, I heard some good things about that Doodle on a Stick. And you're going to be eating it, right? So when I show these kids, I show them Lauryn Hill, they sitting there like, she's all right, but she was popular? I'm like, yeah. How? I'm like, yo, like, this is what she was marketed. She was branded. So, she was up in this. And then, but now you got kids that they can't even fathom that would be something we would want. But the reason being is because the genius of marketing and branding. I'm sorry, go ahead, Omari.
Let me tell you this. I'm glad you brought that up because I went to school for advertising.
Oh, okay. So you know.
And I contributed heavily to hurting my own community with some of the ad campaigns I created for a couple fast food restaurants. That's a successful ad campaign, right? But all of my research was from psychologists.
Yes, all the time.
And it told me how to market, but also I know 3 artists right now whose name I cannot mention on air. Who and I do have to tell you, Professor Griff is like my brother. I travel with Griff.
Oh man, we gotta have him on the show, bro.
This is not one of the people I'm mentioning, so I have to say that so I can be transparent.
Okay.
He's not one, and this group is not one.
Okay.
But I know 3 brothers in the industry who are on contract or have been on contract who have stated to me directly what is in their contract and what they can and cannot do or say on the record. And you would be blown away by what they are told they have to do on each record. And a lot of it, most of it, is misogyny. Right? And the other is how many times you have to say nigga in a song.
Stop it. They give you a number?
They have given. Like, this song is good. We want to keep this song, but we want you to throw three more niggas 3 more times so people can identify with it. So people won't think it's corny. It's all these kind of psychological statements that said to them that you have to go back and revamp this. And if you just say the word Jew on a song,
you out. You out of there. Matter of fact,
right.
it's real funny how at one point athletes were promoting cigarettes. Like athletes were saying, hey, smoke these cigarettes. Like, and we believed it. We were like,
I have an ad from the 60s with Langston Hughes promoting liquor.
Langston Hughes?
He's promoting liquor. He's doing a liquor ad in a magazine.
Damn. Langston Hughes sold out.
So basically,
remember Nas and Rakim did Hennessy and Heineken, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yep. What did you say, Grace?
I said, so basically the dollar amount is right. Anybody will do anything.
Anybody will do anything.
But we don't have to accept that stuff.
We don't, but you know what's so funny? And because what you're saying is right. Like, we don't have to accept it. The genius is the fact that they figure out the way to market to you to make you accept it.
But not only that
they really do.
What we're also forgetting about is the reason why you're saying we don't have to accept it. But for us living in America, it's not that easy. The trauma and the things, the way people of color have been broken in America lends itself to that thing being pushed on us so easy. Because we've been psychologically, emotionally, and physically broken down. And that's what really matters. And these people, these psychologists, they know these things. They know where our weak points are at. They've studied us upon studying us. They've seen how our music moved us. That's why they made it shift from us being taught something intelligent to us being niggas, hoes, and bitches and all those things. They did that purposely. Yes, sir.
And I'm really glad you mentioned the word trauma. Because our music is an exhibition of our trauma.
For real.
Toxic masculinity is an exhibition of our trauma.
Yes.
It's all a trauma show, and we don't talk enough about healing. And men aren't getting therapy because it's soft. It's considered soft.
Mm-hmm.
And women are given these two options of take your freedom and express it how you want to, or get out here and do all this other stuff that we see as stock or hoe stuff, right?
Mm.
And it's like, where is that line for a woman growing up who wants to be free, a girl who's growing up or becomes a woman and wants to be free, but she doesn't really understand the line between being free or disrespecting herself, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Like, she's giving all kind of messages. Like, if you do this, you're disrespecting yourself. If you do this, you're not being free. You're being a prisoner. Like,
right. Or if you speak too boldly, you're being a loud, bitter woman.
Right. So we try to take the expressions away from women and tell them to express themselves in a way that's most pleasing to us.
Mm.
And I mean, and that's not true as far as pleasing to all of us at the same time in the same way.
Right.
But show your body off, please. Show your body off, and do it because we want you to, not because you want to.
But they have been programmed to literally think that. They've been programmed. Like, I've talked to women and I've heard them say, different women, like, we could do this because we want to, and this, that, and the third. But when you look at the crux of it, it's like, do you really want to? Do you even know if you really want to? Or have you been taught by doing that, like brother said, it teaches you like you're free. Oh, I could do it. So now you're running towards that end, to whereas now you're disrespecting yourself. And you can't even tell that you're disrespecting yourself.
See, I guess my thing to that is, it all still starts from us and what we've condoned to put out there for the longest time in regards to. Grace, go ahead, speak on it.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I totally agree. We tolerate it. It's you can put it on them all you want.
I can't hear Grace at all. I'm so
have
disappointed.
To accept it.
She said
I'm just agreeing.
she's having her Valentine's got she's screaming from Valentine's weekend, so her voice is a little faulty, but she was saying
okay.
she was agreeing with the fact that that it's on men, like men condoned the behavior of, and we celebrated,
but more so our culture, you meant, right? More so everybody, our culture
in America culture.
Psychologists, all
Black
people,
culture.
Yes.
But we can change the narrative at any time. I don't care how hard it is.
But do you know how hard?
Those changes.
But do you know how hard it is to undo the trauma that we've been through? I can't.
Can't keep using those excuses.
No, but
you know better. You do better. We got to change the narrative. I don't care.
So Omari, just to bring you in on what she's saying, what she's saying is that because we can't keep using excuses like the trauma, we can't keep using excuses like the marketing and how the psychologists use the marketing, that we need, since we know better, we just do better. Do you think it could be that simple as far as
no, there's no way it could be that simple. And the reason being, I think I get where she's going, but I think that we have to, the problem is not that we're using these things as excuses, it's that we're not actually holistically addressing them.
Right.
So they continue to progress and they continue to move forward. Trauma ain't gonna just go away. You're not gonna just wake up and say, I release this trauma. It really takes work. And the problem is that we in our community, for one, we take counseling as a joke, right? That's something for white people, right? If we don't, even our bodies, right? I'm a retired massage therapist, and black women came to me for pampering. White clients came to me as a health necessity.
Right.
They were taught that you need 2 of these a month because it boosts your immune system, it improves the quality of your skin, it helps you digest the track, right? Black women came because their realities are much different than white women's reality. Their realities are a lot heavier.
Right.
It's a whole lot more black women have to deal with. So they come to me like, I just need to feel better for this next 60 minutes. Pamper me, right? Forget the digestive tract. Forget the boost of the immune system.
Yeah, that's all well
all
and good.
that
Just
sounds good.
to this back.
But
To his legs.
I got stuff that I got to go home to that you don't understand.
Right.
Right. So, but as men, our job should be to help work out these masculinity issues, so that we don't continue to contribute to trauma at such a high level for men and women, boys and girls. We can reduce these trauma levels by not committing the acts that are traumatic,
Right.
and that cause trauma. So we can work these things out, but we actually have to sit down and write things down and look at them, examine them, break them down, and figure out how can we impact this so that we don't continue to perpetuate these cycles.
So also speak to, brother, could you speak to, because I often use a phrase that I say, common sense is not common today. The things that we will hold in value and you would just know something as common sense, it's not common today. And that lends itself to what we were saying about, it's not just that simple to say we know better, do better. The common sense, the reality of people's situations isn't where it used to be. So could you speak to...
It's simple or easy. I'm saying you have to start doing it. We can't just keep saying, well, they're putting it out there, so we're going to take it. No. Well, the radio stations put out what we are wanting to listen to. So they only keep playing this ratchet music because that's what we're tuning into. If we stop tuning into that crap, guess what? They're not going to put it on the radio. They're going to put what we want to hear.
But that's not what we're disagreeing with, though, because that's the truth. They keep on playing those. I think what we're referencing is the fact that how it shifted over to that, where we're consuming, it wasn't, hey, we want this, so make a whole bunch of it, put money into it, brand it, and give it to us. It was we're gonna put money into this, we're gonna brand it, and we're gonna make you want it. So over time, you'll just keep eating it up. So now what we're saying is to actually reprogram,
to undo that.
It's not just now don't tune in. Now it's don't tune in, undo the trauma, shift the narrative within your own community.
Right.
Like, it's so much, so it's very nuanced, you know what I'm saying, of what we would have to do to stop that.
So many layers.
You know what I mean? It's so many layers.
The radio stations and the television stations only play what their advertisers will pay for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the people tell the advertisers no more, the radio station has to make the adjustment.
Right.
But to get there, it's a whole. I
don't understand why it's so hard. Stop listening to
But
it.
the reason why it's, but the reason
Stop.
why, but see, that's easy for you to say because where you're at mentally. The reason why it's so hard is because common sense isn't common no more. That's
so like
what I'm saying.
even down to like something that you might really love to consume or love to listen to, as much or even love to eat, love to whatever it is that has been the thing that you just have been always consuming. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about a generations that have been programmed to only consume toxic content.
Yeah, since the mid-90s.
So when we say, well, just don't listen to it no more, it's so much deeper than that, though. You know what I'm saying? Because it's more than just I turn this on. It's like literally my brain. I remember years ago I did a lecture on hip hop perversion, and I made a hip hop detox fast for the college students, and it was this whole fast that college students had to go on to stop what they're listening to and replace it with certain albums, certain books, different print, and everything. The struggle that they had on fasting from this content, they were like, it was difficult because their brain is so used to having the same type of narrative, the same type of frequency and energy that keeps coming in. You're telling me to just stop it? I literally, and it's like when you say that it's that, But Grace, I think what when you say it's that simple, you're discrediting the actual work that it takes to really stop.
It's like a drug addict.
You know what I mean? Because now
Like
you're
a drug
talking
addict.
like there's so much more to it. I can say just stop. When I used to speak to those kids, I'd be like, look, just stop listening to it. But I know when I ask them, who's the first rapper you ever listened to? You know what I'm saying? And they would be like, Jim Jones. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I know where you started. Me, the first rapper I listened to was, if I gotta go back to X-Clan or KRS-One, you know what I'm saying? But I also had like Ice-T and, I had a balance. But these kids, they got nothing but one narrative. And then when that narrative's done, they go into their community and that narrative is reinforced in their life. So it's like
So stop it and give them something to replace it with. So if that's Jim Jones what he likes, then show him somebody who kind of flows the way Jim does, but have a positive message.
But you see this is what
let them wean off of
this is what the fast was for. And the struggle that they had with the fast was they are so used and conditioned and programmed to consume one type of content. So for me to get rid of that, and that's just like a group of college kids. We're talking about generations all over the country.
So we're gonna just keep listening to it and then complain about it.
No, I agree that the fact that but I think when you reference it the way you do of making it that simple, you're discrediting the work that it takes to really stop that. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like me telling a drug addict for real, just stop smoking crack.
Yeah, just stop shooting dope.
It's just that simple. But it's like
one part of
there's
the
so
body.
much more.
I never said simple. I'm saying we control
It's like
the
setting
narrative.
cancer out of one part of the body, but it's also in other parts of the body.
Right. So it's like, because hip hop is only a symptom, right? So it's like even if we tell them, just stop listening to it, it's like taking away stop listening to it. You got to understand that they gave me the same thing that they put and conditioned in my community. So not only are you feeding me this sonically, right? But I'm also living it physically. So it's like,
it's on autopilot.
Yeah, so like the work that it takes, I think that's what we really need to unpack. Or we could just minimize it and just say, just stop. But it's like we have to now take the just stop part, unpack that, and really get into the work that it takes to stop. Because now you're also talking about, on the music end, you're talking about billionaires like T.I., Jay-Z, and all them who are at the top taking their pictures at the Jay-Z brunch, Rockefeller brunch. And it's like, all y'all can't come together and buy out these labels? So that's one. You know what I'm saying? Because now if you buy out these labels, maybe then we can have a step towards rebranding and repackaging how hip-hop is being delivered to us. You know what I'm saying? But then there's also the work that needs to be done in the community. Because even if you fix that, like Brother Omari was saying, like, that's like one part of the cancer in the body. You know what I'm saying? Now we got to go into the other part and start working with that for that to even be sustainable. You know what I'm saying? For like, how are we going to help the trauma that's going on with our young people while also reprogramming the way they're consuming? You know what I mean? This is what was so great about Tyler Perry Studios. So hopefully he doesn't never make another fall from grace. But the fact that he has that studio means everything, because hopefully they are going to use that to now start to repackage and reprogram and rebrand the way Hollywood is delivering cinema to us. You know what I mean? Because now we can get movies with more figures and more people. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Brother Omari.
So even with that, like you mentioned in the Tyler Perry piece, these are more layers. And I know this isn't fully on the subject of patriarchy, but there are more layers to that, because even what he does with buying that studio, which was brilliant, he made a very giant mistake in purchasing that studio, which is the U.S. government still owns the grounds rights below the ground.
Really?
To that studio. Yeah. He bought that from the government, so to speak. So they can eminent domain that property anytime they want to without a problem.
What? That's insane.
So he can reach the apex of this greatness, and then they say, "Oh, you're doing too much."
So he got.
Give me that stuff.
How does he? Whoa,
That's
hold
on top of an underground base.
I did know that, but I didn't know they still had
Yeah.
ownership.
They still own the rights below the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that why
He
they let
owns
them buy?
he owns everything surface up. They own ground, and their underground rights, in many cases, are more prevalent.
And
But when it's owned by the government,
right.
Do you think
you're
that's
in danger of eminent domain any minute?
Do you think that's why they let him buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the conspiracy theorist in me says yes, but I have no evidence and no logical information to prove that. So let me be transparent on that.
But naturally, good brother, they had no problem with him buying it. They may not encourage him, but I think quickly they're like, yeah, all right, go ahead. You want to buy this? Sure. Go right ahead. Because if he start doing stuff that's too powerful and reaching in our direction too heavily, yo man, run it.
Oh man, you just really disappointed me, man.
Yeah.
I
I don't think he did that with that kind of knowledge or that kind of, thought process. But I'm from Detroit, Michigan. We had a place called Black Bottom, which was one of the most well-thriving black business districts in the area, in the country until the 40s. Our dollars were turning over a tremendous amount of times here. And because our businesses were doing so well, the local white governments decided to eminent domain all of our 400 businesses and build a freeway through it. Now I-75 runs down that street. That used to be Hastings Street, which was where most of the Black Bottom businesses were.
I didn't know that, bro, because I drive track to Trellis, and I've been through Detroit, man, and that was one of the saddest places I've seen in my life, brother. I seen like one cop car for a whole city, no lie. The people in the city ran the city. That's a whole nother subject. But every time I heard you say I'm from Detroit, I said, ooh.
Detroit is a beautiful place, though. I'm going to tell you, I was born and raised here.
Yes, sir.
And to know the city is to know the city. But you do that history on that Black Bottom, and it's going to blow you away.
Y'all caught hell,
but
man.
Once again, the government eminent domained it.
So let me ask you this. Here's a theory I got. Tell me if I'm off. I feel like everybody who's a millennial right now, when they are grandparents, if we keep having conversations like this, we keep doing this work, right? We keep bringing it to the forefront, making it more normal in our education, in our schools, making it more normal in our communities to teach young men what healthy masculinity looks like, teach young women what healthy femininity looks like, and if we keep doing it, even down to educating more on transgender and homosexuality, you know what I'm saying? My theory is that everybody who's a millennial now, when they are grandparents, that will be at a place where the shift that we're looking for could actually happen. But because we have people from our era, so we're Generation X, right? And then you got baby boomers before us. All of them are still teaching the old traditional ways of how things look and how should go in society. But once we die off, and it's all millennials, the way that we're learning now is going to be the norm. So this is where I feel the shift will happen as long as we keep these conversations going.
Well, see, I agree, and that's why I love millennials, because I see so many of them out here doing the work.
Yeah.
And one thing I keep trying to remind brothers to my age group is just because our parents did it and we survived it physically doesn't mean it was a healthy practice.
Right.
Right? Like, we have to get past that. Oh, I got my ass whooped all the time, and look at me. Yeah, you fucked up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some of these kids need their ass whooped, though, bro. Some of these kids need their ass whooped.
Some of these kids need their ass whooped.
Well, I mean, that's I have feelings on that, but my greater point is not to bring up that as a subject.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we say a lot of things worked, but those things aren't necessarily healthy.
Right.
So
yeah, like at some point, car seats weren't even a thing that, like, I know grandparents right now that look at car seats as like, what you need a car seat for? I used to just strap you in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we have people, like I have folks that say, well, you know, this whole gay thing, you know, it's so many of them out here now. They're here the whole time. But our society told them they couldn't come out in the light.
You don't think that there's more young people ending up gay because they're being influenced? Do you think it's always been just as many as it was back in the day as it is now, or do you think there's been an increase? No, it's been the same all the time.
I'm gonna tell you this. And when I was in high school and middle school, it was so many dudes I thought was gay, right? And not just because they were feminine, just certain things they would say or do, and I was like, yo, you in the closet, right? Now imagine, I came out in 91 out of high school. So if I knew that
wait, do you mean out of high school or out of
it was in hiding, then I know now the difference is that folks have a little bit more leeway to be themselves.
Hey, just to bring clarification for the people, when you said you came out in 91, you meant out of high school.
I came out of high school.
Right.
I came out of high school in 91.
I'm trying to help you out, brother.
Let me say, I graduated from Detroit Frank Cody High School in 1991.
All right, no doubt.
Yeah. I'm just thank you for that clarification.
No doubt.
I mean, and I'm only clarifying it because it's funny and because, you know, it's part of the conversation. But like, I'm not the dude that cares if people think, you know. If somebody said, "Oh, Omari's gay," like that wouldn't offend me, right? I wouldn't be bothered by that.
Right.
I'm good on who I am. You know what I mean? But
no doubt.
That was funny as hell.
I was like, oh, okay.
Like that changed the whole conversation.
We can go into a whole other conversation now, bro.
But I really wanted to ask you.
See the work. What do you say?
No, go ahead, good brother. Go ahead.
I was saying the work I do is very important. Like typically, like I said, I wouldn't care if people thought one way or the other about me. But it's very important that people know that a heterosexual man, a man who is attracted to women and only women, does this work. Because a lot of the guys that are doing this work, you know, not a lot of them, but some of the guys I've seen do identify as gay or feminine, right, or female. So I think it brings an extra layer when people see that it's a man who identifies within his manhood and masculinity as such to be doing this work. Because we need everybody doing the work.
Right.
And typically heterosexual men weren't doing this work. It was women and gay men doing this work.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you, man. I have a hard time doing. At one point, and Rem will tell you, I always would speak to the men about, you know, what we need to be doing, how we need to do better, and I still want to, but I'm very careful now because I feel like there is this ongoing narrative that gets pushed in mainstream media about what black men aren't doing, and I feel like it does demonize us. And I'm like, okay, I'm tired of that. So from now on, I want to celebrate masculinity. I want to show what healthy masculinity is. And I'm done talking about the whole toxic shit. You know, I'm going to be real with you. Like, that's the work I need to do now because I feel like it's the other part of the conversation that's not normal anymore.
Well, see, here's the thing. I think that we need to be talking about all. Like, you shouldn't take away from time from talking about what toxic is, right? Because if you can't identify the problem, you can't identify the solution, right? So we have to talk about that. And even on a prevalent level, we have to talk about it. But we have to also talk about what is working and the positives and talk about what men can do and what men are doing. We have to talk about all of it. Right? We can't let one layer fall because it's very serious.
Yeah.
And one would even almost say that we are invoking male privilege when we feel like we don't want to talk about the negative stuff. Now, think about this on the scale of race, right? Let's say a white man says, let's say Tim Wise says, I no longer want to talk about the negative things that white people are doing. I want to talk about the positive things. Well, the black people don't want to hear you talk about the positive things that white people are doing.
Okay,
like, that's
fair
cool.
enough.
You know what I'm saying? But we want you to identify for your fellow white people what the issues are and talk about how it's problematic. And then at the end of that, talk about solution building process. So when we talk about what's toxic, let's not just leave it as toxic. Let's add the solution building process too.
Right. Right. Do you feel like there is this? Do you feel like more men, just as much as we might be, as men, have displayed toxic masculinity, misogyny, sexism? Do you feel like more young boys, as much as we want to encourage vulnerability, which I'm all for that,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like I still feel like there's a balance, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like young boys should express their vulnerability, but
Mm-hmm.
don't be beta. Like, you know, like, don't. I feel like there's a balance where you can be too much, where you're crying too much, where you need to be able to know when to focus, know when to control, but at the same time, don't feel like you always have to hold back either. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with crying, but I feel like there needs to be a balance. Do you feel like we're raising more boys that are being soft though?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
don't. I think that I don't identify that as soft, right? I identify that as just like vulnerable, different levels of vulnerable. We don't ask that of our daughters. We tell our daughters, you know, cry when you need to cry. You know what I'm saying? You know, then we tell our boy to man up. Same age. You know, we tell him to man up, and we hold her and coddle her.
And I do agree.
Right.
I do agree that we don't like. I do agree that we need to leave it open for young boys to understand that it's okay. But do you feel like there needs to be, like, from a masculine to raising a boy to be a man, should it still be taught that there needs to be a sense of emotional control?
I think that emotional control is cool, but I don't think that's the most pressing issue. I think the most pressing issue is creating safe spaces for them to be emotional.
Mm.
And I think that's what's missing.
Right.
Is that the world tells them, you better be hard or you won't survive. And that's because we let people walk around treating people like shit.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta be hard. Like, listen, I came up in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I lived in some rough stuff, right?
Yeah.
I lived in some rough stuff, but I grew up in a house with 6 women. So I saw the vulnerability with the women, but when I walked out to hang out with my boys, there was no vulnerability present.
Right.
And so I grew up confused on this whole vulnerability piece. I had to be hard. I had to be tough when I didn't want to be. I just wanted to play ball. I just wanted to chill. I wanted to puff my chest up walking down the street because I'm walking past Lil Willie and John's house.
Right.
That's traumatic. You do that 12 times in a month, that's traumatic.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need to work out this whole hard soft piece by creating safer spaces.
So,
And that is a healthy masculine space where if a boy's walking down the street and a kid want to get tough with it, the neighbors, the boys, they're like, this ain't that space for them. This is not the kind of space we want for that. We don't want that.
Mm.
Like, we all got to step up on that.
Yeah.
So how do we?
That has to no longer be acceptable. Was the brother saying that?
No, yes, sir. So how do we help people that haven't been born with the other parent in the home, whether it's a young girl that never grew up with a father, or young men that never grew up with the father, or vice versa on any level, on any of those sides? How do we help them understand the importance and the value of the mother or the father? Like for a young woman that has grew up with a home that now she doesn't have the true value of the father because she never grew up with one, how do you help her see where she's been affected in that way?
We have to build healthier men. That when men reach out, men see her struggling, and they reach out to her, they're not doing it from a predatory aspect, right? Because that's the problem I'm hearing from a lot of young women, is that a man will come around and he'll express himself as an ally, but won't truly be an ally, right? So we have to create more men. We have to build more men who are not approaching young girls or young boys in a predatory aspect,
right?
But in a more holistic and healthy aspect. And part of that is just really, really dealing with conversations amongst men about misogyny and sexism, right? About patriarchy. We have to start having these conversations. Like, I was doing them once a month last year through my organization, and I'm like, yo, I'm doing these, and we're promoting them. We're putting money behind promoting them, but 8 men are showing up. And I got the NFL backing me on this. NFL gave us money to promote this and do this, and I'm still only getting 8 men that are willing to have this conversation. And it's not even the same 8 men every week. Wow, I had a core of about 4 or 5 men, right?
Wow.
So men are not even really interested on a large scale. They're not even interested in having this conversation. I've invited thousands of them personally. Now, if I do a sporting event or a hip-hop event, or like I used to do poetry events, I can get them in the room.
Right.
But to have these conversations where they got to be vulnerable in a room with other men and talk about this stuff, they're not having these conversations. But the biggest problem is the men that are coming, and this is not a shock to them, but the men who are coming aren't inviting other men.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't want a man they're close to see them in a vulnerable space.
You know, it's interesting, man. I recently had an experience. I was telling Brother Rem about it, and I told a couple other brothers, and they all, well, except you, Rem, but the other 2 brothers I spoke to was like, man, I had that same feeling, and I've been there. I've been stuck there for a while. So long story short of what happened was I had a thought of kind of like just a vision of my life in the most negative way, right? Future in the most negative way. It was almost, and I do a lot of meditation, I do a lot of prayer, I do a lot of things that can help me shift my thoughts if they're ever getting negative, and always help me to revamp myself. I'm always renewing myself. And so when negative thoughts would come, I'm easy to be able to shift it real quick to something positive. But for this moment, I would call it like an emotional paralysis where I was stuck there. I was absolutely stuck in this dark place with the darkest thoughts and feelings that you could think of. The whole room almost got dark. It was like, it was so dark that I was like, yo, if this is what people feel day in, day out, and if this is the level of depression that they feel, then I understand why they go to the limits that they go to of self-destruction, right? And when I spoke about it with brothers, and for me, as soon as I had that feeling, I was like, okay, I need to reset. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna revision my 5-year plan. I'm gonna redo my workout agenda. Like, I had all these things laid out. This is what I'm gonna do, because this is what I do for myself. And when I spoke about it with the 2 other brothers I spoke with, not only did they agree and was like, yo, I've been in that dark room for months at a time, but never told nobody. Never told nobody. And the idea was, yo, we should come together. Brothers should come together, play some music, whatever you're going to do, and vision board, like reset everything. Let's redo it. Let's really revamp our lives individually in the same space. You know, both brothers was like, yo, I want to do that. I'm down to do that. Came through, but that was so rare for me, even for brothers to sit and like be wanting to work on ourselves in the same room. But women will do vision board parties. They'll do spa days for self-care. They'll do all that.
See, when
brothers will not do that.
When I was in that place, it made me focus. My depression always got me trapped in my past. I didn't have the vision of my future. My depression trapped me in my past and the things and the trauma that I dealt with in my past. I don't,
But either way, no matter whether it's past or future, the fact is that when we deal with that, that was a moment I dealt with that. It was hard. Like, I literally felt a force. I don't usually like to mystify things, but this was what it was. I felt a force keeping me from being able to call someone, literally. And I'm like, man, like it was an unbelievable. I never felt it before. But the fact that when I reach out to brothers and they're like, yo, I felt that for months at a time and didn't say nothing. That's crazy.
The program I'm telling you about, I did it for 8 months, right? Not one of my closest male friends ever showed up.
Wow.
And my closest male friends all know the work I'm doing. And either they won't ever bring it up or they'll just say they're proud of me for doing it. But they, like, unless I challenge them on something they say or do, the conversation never comes up.
Women would be there in a minute. If it was like women empowerment, even when I went to go online and look for like retreats, meditation retreats for prayer and stuff like that. I mean for meditation and stuff like that. Nothing for black men or for black women or just people, white people. You know what I mean? It's crazy, bro.
Hey man, we gotta seek healing.
Yeah, I know.
That's what we're not doing enough.
Yeah,
we're not seeking enough healing.
Well, brother, if you got something going on in Detroit, some type of conference for men's healing, man, we gotta make a trip happen.
Yeah, I'm definitely in talks about something on the conference level. I'm just trying to find some consistent partners here to do it. Outside of right now, I have a bunch of women on board to help me with it, but
of course you do.
you know,
so women are always down.
Brothers, come on now, come on, let's show and prove, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, women are always down. There's no question, bro. There's no question. I will say, man, like this platform has a very surprising high number of men that support it. You know what I'm saying?
Good. That's great.
Yeah. So I am happy for that, and and a lot of times, man, like I gotta bring conversations to the barbershop because like that's just where.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where they talk the most, man.
I've done the same thing, and it's a good space to work in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But there's a brother out in New Jersey, West Orange, a great friend of mine, another poet. We both poets, and he's just an amazing guy. His name is Jamal St. John. And you need to connect with Jamal. He's on Facebook, Jamal St. John.
Okay.
And he's also a warrior in this patriarchal culture battle. Brilliant mind. He does relationships forums as well. But I want to connect you with him because I think I'd love to have another conversation with you all on air again.
Absolutely.
I'd love also for you to connect with Jamal. And then there's a brother named Spencer Murray down in Atlanta.
Okay.
As well. He's from Detroit, but he's in Atlanta, which is half Atlanta's from Detroit.
So,
but,
hey, my last question before we leave, man, is when you say patriarchy, is that coming from black or white supremacy?
Well, it all originates from white supremacy.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we continue to model in the black community.
Got it. Okay. I think that's an important distinction because if we modeled from the African tradition, it was more a matriarchy. It wasn't patriarchy.
That depends on what region and time you're talking about.
Okay.
Because like if we go into the Kemetic dynasties, they were almost all men, with the exception of a couple of women. And one of those women, Hatshepsut, had to pretty much become, so to speak, transgender to be accepted.
Where is this?
When I think it was her husband that died, and she took over the throne. If I'm not mistaken, I have to refresh myself.
In Africa?
Yeah.
And she became
in
what?
Kemetic culture?
Yeah, she even took on a woman partner.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hatshepsut.
I did not know that at all, bro. What you guys say to that? Because you were one of the main people that was like, there's no evidence of any homosexuality or transgender in ancient African culture.
Yeah, that's, I'm stunned by that, good brother. I've never seen any, homosexuality type of anything going on. And
there you have it.
Yeah, you got two men kissing on the pyramid.
What?
All right, we're done. We're done.
Hey, listen, bro. I want to say to you too, man, that anytime you want to have me and Jay come on out to any of your functions in Detroit, you can fly us out. If the NFL's backing you, or bust us out, we'll bring some kids. Let's talk and try to make something happen.
Umar Johnson. We will be out there. Just pay for it.
Don't get me started on Umar.
Oh, bro, we ripped him apart in the beginning of the episode, bro. We ripped him apart, bro, because he bought a building but needs everything for it.
Helicopter turrets never stop working.
Hey, bro, thank you so much for coming on, man. Let's do this again, and let Professor Griff know, man. I gotta contact him. I would love for him to come on the show. Let
him know, please, that we love that brother, man.
Yeah.
Let him know that his people in Connecticut said we got
Next time I'm sitting next to him, in fact, I'll send him something, and y'all. Now, he and I have a lot of different perspectives, so you're going to get a whole different show.
No doubt. Nah, I've been following Professor Griff for years, man. I love that brother, man.
But
it's
definitely love there. And love you too, brother. Definitely
appreciate
love
you,
bro.
Love you, bro.
Love y'all too. Thank all three of you for having me on the show. I really greatly appreciate it. And sorry it took me so long to get on the show.
That's all right.
But let me know if you need me back. I'll be back.
We'll do that, brother. All right, peace to you.
All right, peace, y'all.